Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. Today on the show, Rouge Park has seen Detroit's best days and its toughest.
We'll explore how the park survived and why it's thriving again at 100 years old.
And Detroit's revitalization has given people a lot to celebrate, but not everyone has an invite to the party.
Mayoral candidate Fred Durhal says he's got the blueprint for balance. The Detroit City Council member joins us to explain.
Plus, Melanie Hearn's comedy feels like Detroit. It's honest, funny, and edgy.
She'll give us something to laugh about ahead of tomorrow's WDET benefit show, What's So Funny About Detroit?
But first, since October 7th, 2023, the world has felt different for a lot of American Jews. Antisemitism has risen. More recently, 2 people were shot dead outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. And a man with a flamethrower in Colorado attacked Israeli hostage advocates. At the same time, the Jewish majority country that is Israel has expanded its militarism. That country recently attacked Iran to destroy its nuclear capacity and potentially overturn its regime. Israel has gotten the support of President Trump as America has now also attacked Iran's nuclear sites. Meanwhile, Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza has continued. There are now at least 57,000 Palestinians who've been killed by Israel's attacks since October 7th, 2023. And famine is a profound issue. Israel's months-long food aid blockade has put 1 in 5 Palestinians on the brink of starvation. Where does all this leave American Jews? What do they make of the political moment, both here and abroad? A few weeks ago, we spoke with a professor of American Jewish culture. And more recently, producer Sam Corey spoke with Rabbi Shalom Cantor. He runs Congregation B'nai Moshe, which is a Zionist temple. The two spoke prior to Israel's attacks on Iran, Iran's retaliations, and America's involvement in the war.
What has life been like at your synagogue since October of 2023? How have things changed?
Things have changed that we have a slight uptick in the number of people who are coming. And we have a focus on, in what I speak about and also what congregants are concerned about is what's going on in Israel. So there's a daily prayers that we've been saying specifically for the hostages who are being held. I believe it's now 55 hostages. We also have been acknowledging some of the weeks, unfortunately, that's happened when soldiers have fallen in the line of duty in defending the state of Israel. Congregants have been concerned, but I've been addressing it through my sermons and the individual and small group conversations.
What have been the themes of your sermons? What is sort of the wisdom that you're trying to leverage to guide yourself and others through this moment?
Initially, all my sermons were about what was going on, and I was using the weekly Torah portion and other wisdom to really try and reflect on constantly maintaining a semblance of both balance in terms of how we approach things, a little bit of skepticism in terms of any news report that comes out, and a sense of coolness, a sense of non-reactionary reflection. That's really been a lot of my keys, but also an absolute determination to defend ourselves as the Jewish people and to support the state of Israel and what it needs to do to defend itself and its citizens, the brothers and sisters who are living there, our family members who are there. And so it's a balance between wanting to make sure that we're maintaining within ourselves a balance and not becoming extremists, because it's very easy to become extremists in heightened state such that we're finding, both with the antisemitism but also with the horrific violence that was perpetrated against the state of Israel and the Jewish people on October 7th, and not get sucked into the extreme point of wanting to destroy everybody, but recognizing that there is a need to defend ourselves at the same time. And so it's really about striking that balance with an absolute firmness in protecting our people.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about extremeness and what that looks like, so we'll come back to it. But I really want to understand what it's like to be a rabbi in America today. Does it feel different than in other moments? I'm curious how you've seen your role change over time and certainly after October 7th of 2023.
In some ways, it's different because people are looking to me, especially around the high holidays, for a definitive message of where I stand. And I think I was able to do that while not falling into the trap of isolationism or extremism or absolutism, which are, in my opinion, very dangerous places to go. And yeah, as you could say, I was absolutely certain in my support for the state of Israel and the need to defend itself, and at the same time, really working hard to explain that humans are complicated. And when you have a complicated situation that was created by a horrific, despicable, disgusting act, and then the need to respond to that through human action, where humans make mistakes. And when humans go to war, there are mistakes made, there are rules broken, and at the same time, we have to understand that it's a human situation. According to the Torah, humans were designed that they were fallible. There's a beautiful tradition that says that the process of rectifying mistakes, we call it tshuva, was actually created before humans because God understood that humans were going to make mistakes. And that's part of being human. It doesn't mean, and it doesn't excuse it, but it also puts things in light that sometimes mistakes are made in the process of defending ourselves. And that's a reality of the human experience and the human condition.
I want to talk a little bit about the rise of anti-Semitism that we've seen. Of course, we've seen some recent attacks in both Washington, D.C. and Colorado. How have people at your congregation been responding to this? And I'm wondering, are there spaces for grieving, for processing? What does this look like at B'nai Moshe?
At B'nai Moshe, there has not been a sense of grieving. There's been a sense of frustration. There's been even elements of fear. And I want to repeat what people at the Jewish Federation have said, and I have said many times, that we aren't reactionary. We did not increase our security after any of these events. And the reason we didn't increase our security is that I believe, and our security team here at B'nai Moshe and our board of directors believes, that we have an excellent security system and processes. And we didn't need to increase in any reactionary way because we already are a very secure building, a very secure community, and we continue to be vigilant and on the lookout for problems that may arise, but we are not worried about security. In terms of the emotions of people in general are nervous. There is some fear amongst some of our congregants, but I am the type of person who says that I am not going to let a terrorist terrorize me. I am not going to stop being who I am. I'm a Jew. I'm a proud Jew. I wear my kippah everywhere I go. I don't feel the need to put a hat on to cover it up because I am who I am. And I'm not worried. 99% of the people out there or more have no interest in hurting me. And I don't feel the need to hide behind anything.
What it sounds like is there's an attempt to sort of preserve your humanity, your sanity, and that of your congregation, acknowledging that, yes, there have been attacks on Jewish people, but also that if one were to become overly cautious, if one were to let their anxiety sort of overrule or dominate them, then they would lose something about their sort of sense of the world, their sense of how people operate, and also their sense of their own sanity. Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair. I believe that in my approach, that I am reassuring my congregation, my congregant, of who I am and that I'm here with them. I'm in this with them. And my sense of security is hopefully setting an example of how to be in the world. That yes, we're vigilant. Yes, we're cautious, but it doesn't mean we stop living our lives. Because the second you stop living your lives, you allow the terrorists to win.
You're listening to The Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm producer Sam Corey speaking with Rabbi Shalom Cantor of Congregation B'nai Moshe in West Bloomfield. We're talking about what life is like for him and his congregation as anti-Semitism has been on the rise and as Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza has continued. Rabbi, I want to talk to you a little bit about your relationship, your congregation's relationship to Israel. I know we were talking about that earlier. I saw on your website that you're sponsoring a trip to that country. I wonder how your congregation's relationship with Israel has changed, if at all, since Hamas's attack on Israel in 2023.
We've always been a strong Zionist congregation, meaning by the word Zionist, and I use that specifically, but I want to define it. By Zionist, it means we are absolutely in support of the state of Israel as the Jewish state. Before October 7th, we were a Zionist congregation who was devoted to supporting the story of Israel. And afterwards, that is only increased.
You mentioned sort of the differing perspectives that people have in your congregation. You said that, of course, people support Israel. They want a strong Israel. They want a strong Jewish state. But there's also differing perspectives on Israel. And what I'm presuming from that is how Israel is handling its war against Hamas. I'm wondering how you open conversations or how you allow for conversations on a topic that's a lightning rod, right, is about Israel's ongoing war. What do those look like?
It's a great question. The issue is that in any situation where there is nuance and controversy, of course, there are going to be many different opinions. And because this is so close to our hearts, it's going to be something that triggers people. How do I deal with it? I open up the conversation by saying we all have a baseline that we can agree on. There are going to be many nuances of that baseline that we disagree on, and we can have really wonderful, respectful conversations about them. But the reality is that I am not a political commentator, and I'm not going to open up a conversation on political issues, whether they're American political issues or Israeli political issues. Additionally, I am not a military strategist, meaning that I can have all my opinions I want, but I'm a rabbi. And so I'm going to teach based on texts, ancient texts, modern texts, but nevertheless Jewish texts that come beginning with the Torah up through the rabbinic tradition and onward through the Middle Ages. I'm going to use text to frame any conversation I have. So any dialogue that we have is based around a concept of these texts. I taught a class in the last year, I'm teaching it again right now at the Jewish Federation, about what does it mean for Jews to defend themselves? And what are the ramifications of it? What do we need to think about in this process? And there are definitely people in my classes who have come out very harshly on one side or the other. And luckily, as a moderator of such conversations, I've been able to say, I hear what you're saying. Let me rephrase it back to you. Is that accurate? Yes, it is. Okay. And what about you? And I do the same things with the other side. And I say, so it sounds like the issue that we're disagreeing on is X. And they say yes. And I say, okay, let's look at why that is. We're not trying to convince each other of what side is right or wrong, but to hear each other's ideas.
You've brought up two ideas that are really interesting. I do want to, I guess, pull them apart as much as possible, Rabbi, which is the Jews' right to defend themselves and also the ramifications of militarism. I'm wondering, based on your reading, based on your knowledge, how you know when one line crosses over into the other. How do you know when there's sort of a breaching of that ramification?
I don't. I'm sorry to give you a short answer on that, but I don't. I am not on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. I'm here in a very comfortable office, air-conditioned office in West Bloomfield, and I am not on the battlefield. And so for me to be a Monday morning quarterback is not fair. In the same breath, I will tell you that every single life on earth that is lost is an absolute disaster. Every human was created in the image of God, in the image of holiness, and every human has a spark of the divine in them in one way or another. Does that mean that we should try and prevent killing everybody? That's hard for me to say because we have to defend ourselves. And if that means that, unfortunately, in the process of eliminating terrorists who are purposely, over the last 15 years, planning out how to hide their military bases in the most populated areas to ensure the maximum death count of civilians, I don't know how to win that war. And if you ask from the articles that I've read, it's a virtually impossible war to win because of the situation that was created by the terrorist organization Hamas. The more civilians that died on their end, the better for them, because it would look worse against Israel. How do you answer the question you brought when that is the situation that you're going in? Does that excuse? No, it doesn't excuse. Does it negate the horrors? No, it does not negate the horrors. Does it help us understand the larger picture of what we're dealing with, or what the Israeli Defense Force is dealing with in trying to defend the Jewish people? I believe it does.
I guess there's one other thing I want to ask you about this, which is an idea that you brought up earlier, which is about extremism and trying to balance really hard things, right? Trying to balance both personally and collectively, as I understand you were saying it, a need for security, a need for safety, and also a wariness of extremism. I guess kind of the same line, I'm wondering how you know that either at a personal or collective level that someone has breached into extremism. What is Jewish teachings about heading into that extremism? How would someone know if they sort of crossed that line?
When you can't see any way besides your own as possibly being valid, you've crossed into extremism. When every other path forward is illegitimate in your eyes, you've potentially crossed into extremism. When your way, in your eyes, entitles you to wantonly destroy others purely for the sake of your own goal, you have potentially gone into extremism. When you see others as evil purely for not believing in your own way, you've potentially gone into extremism.
I want to conclude by talking about being a rabbi in America at this time. I do wonder what you make of good rabbinical leadership. When you look to yourself, when you look to other rabbis, what are they doing in a moment of Israel's heightened war, Israel becoming a bit of a lightning rod, and increased anti-Semitism?
Good rabbinical leadership looks like speaking truth to justice, in the sense of saying, let's be honest with who we are. Let's be honest with what has happened, what is happening. Let's be honest with what the genuine threats are versus the perceived or even imagined threats, and let's address them head on. And when we see within our own community people going astray from that by creating fear-mongering, we call it out. Good rabbinical leadership is there to embrace their congregants where they are and to help them see the truth from the lie. Good rabbinical leadership is there to use the wisdom of our sages, the wisdom of the Torah, and the presence of God through interpersonal relationship to bring comfort and strength and peace, both to their community and to the larger community in which we are.
Can I ask you, without naming names or calling anyone out specifically, I'm wondering if there is a time where you had to hold accountable someone in your congregation or someone that you knew who you felt like was maybe acting with extremism, maybe acting with a hard heart, maybe not following some of those principles.
I had somebody come into our congregation at one point who was not a member, but they were thinking of, becoming involved with us. And they looked at me at one point and they said, Rabbi, you're not one of those congregations that sings that Shalom Salam song, are you? That peace song? And I looked right at them and I said, what do you mean? And they said, the one English and Hebrew, Arabic, whatever, peace, peace, peace. And I said, if you mean Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, may peace come onto all of us, then yes, we are. Yes, we are. We close our Friday night services with that because you know what? We can be peace-loving and still be extremely strong. And I explained straightforward that at the end of the 29th Psalm, it says that the Lord will give God's people strength and the Lord will bless God's people with peace. First, you have strength, but what's the end goal? The end goal is peace. No doubt about it. And I was straightforward. Person walked away. A week later, came back and said, I hear you, Rabbi.
That was producer Sam Corey speaking with Rabbi Shalom Cantor of Congregation B'nai Moshe. After Israel attacked Iran retaliated, and America got involved in the fighting. So producer Sam Corey spoke again with Rabbi Cantor on Monday. Sam wanted the rabbi's reaction since Israel's militarism expanded. They began by discussing what Rabbi Cantor's thoughts were on the heightened war.
I believe that when there is an existential threat to a community, to a nation, then it is the nation's obligation to defend itself. Over and over, the Iranian regime, since the revolution and the overthrow of the Shah, the Iranian government has said over and over that they have a vision, they have a goal, they have a dream of destroying the state of Israel, wiping it off the face of the earth. They have hosted the Holocaust Denial Conference, a sham of an academic attempt at whatever it was. It was an attempt to prove something didn't happen when it did, or to belittle it, and that is a move towards eradication of the Jewish people. Their anti-Semitic rhetoric in desiring to kill Jews, desiring to wipe the Jewish state off the face of the earth, is a direct threat, and you have to take people at their word for what they say.
What is your understanding for why this is happening now? Iran's been saying this for decades. This has been an ongoing issue. Why
but
is
they haven't had a way to do it. They haven't had a way to do it. Look, we know that Iran has funded Hezbollah in the north, and Hezbollah has been an ongoing threat for many, many, many years. It has launched numerous missiles. It had a stockpile, some people guess, of up to 100,000 missiles aimed at different parts of Israel. Over and over, they have threatened to release those missiles. We know that those missiles were capable of reaching every major populated center in the state of Israel. And it would not be very hard to imagine unscrewing a regular warhead of some sort of explosive, whatever the explosive, I'm not a weapons expert, and screwing on or attaching some sort of dirty bomb, whether that be chemical, whether that be biological, whether that be nuclear, and launching that into a major population center of Israel.
The Obama administration has been working on a plan to denuclearize Iran. I'm wondering what you make of the diplomatic efforts. It seems like with war, the possibilities of that shrink. But I wonder if you think that there was any possibility for diplomacy.
The Obama administration tried very hard, and they put into place their agreement. Unfortunately, the Obama administration's agreement was a 10-year pause that was not a long-term solution, but it was just pushing it down the line because it would have been undone. It would have fallen away from its relevancy 10 years or 15 years at the most after it went into effect, and Iran would have been able then to continue on.
The last time we spoke, we talked about extremism, and you spoke about extremism showcasing itself in an individual or collective that wants to destroy others for the sake of its own goal.
Well, their goal being specifically the destruction of, the ultimate is that their goal is the destruction of the other person.
I take your points, but I do want to point this at Israel for a second, which is to say that this is the most right-wing government in Israel's history, and it is, without a doubt, religious extremists that run much of the government. There is no plan for a day after, quote-unquote, in Gaza. There have been now upwards of 50,000 Palestinians that have been killed. Starvation's a big problem there. Now there's a war in Iran, and I guess I wonder if you think that there are legitimate critiques that need to be leveled, not at the people of Israel, but at the Israeli government, at a lot of the people in charge who are waging wars. And to a lot of people, I think they wonder where this will go, what the aims are. And I'm wondering what you think about extremism in this context.
There is no question that there are extremist voices included in the current makeup of the government, the ruling coalition, I would say, of the Israeli government right now. No question about it. And there are voices in there that I vehemently disagree with and I think are extremely problematic and should be called out for their racist statements and some of their policies. Of course, the top two people of Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who without a doubt,
the finance minister and the national security minister, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, the finance minister and the national security minister, who are extremely problematic. And I say that no problem. Some of the things they say are embarrassing to me. And I want to say very clearly that they are deeply problematic. I think that their ideologies are problematic because they openly call for the eradication or at least the elimination within the geographic grounds of, the larger Israel of an entire population of people. And I think that that is also problematic, no question about it. And I don't accept it as speaking, at least on behalf of me. Now, mind you, I'm not an Israeli, and I didn't vote for them. And I don't vote in Israeli elections. And the reality is that I don't have to live with the consequences of missiles falling on my head. So I am cautious about critiquing government policies in general when it comes to security. But when it comes to racist and extremist ideologies, I have no problem calling it out.
That was Metro producer Sam Corey speaking with Rabbi Shalom Cantor. Since they spoke, Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire, which many analysts say is a fragile one. This is The Metro on WDET Detroit Public Radio. Stay with us.